Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. We are back in the S8 again. Like I said in my previous video, we're going to be doing like a series of S8 vids. We're going to be covering the running costs of the S8. We are going to be taking you out on those country lanes and talking about it. But if you guys are thinking about buying one of these cars and you know you're probably thinking of like how much does it cost to run, then definitely stay tuned because we're going to be covering most of those running costs in this vid. So first of all, a very quick walk around for you guys on this car. So a quick walk around of the car. I have done an in-depth spec talk of the car, but here we go anyway for this vid. It's finished off in an Audi exclusive cherry black paintwork, so it's got a kind of a nice fleck in the paint. It's wearing the 21-inch Audi S8 Plus wheels. It's got a Maxton splitter on the front. Moving on to the interior, it's S8 business as usual, but like I say, I have done like a full spec talk on it. It's got like a oyster type of leather interior, really complements the exterior quite well. It's got quite a few modifications on this car as well. It's been tuned quite highly. Moving around the rear end of the car, we've got an aggressive diffuser which is made by Maxton, and we've got a Miltech straight pipe non-resonated, and it's also got decats on the car as well, but we'll talk more about them on the drive. I know that was like a very quick walk around of the S8, but I have done a full in-depth spec talk of this car which I'll link up over here somewhere. What we're going to do now is give you a sound check, and then we're going to go and hit those country lanes and talk about the running costs of this car. So we're going to be talking about the running costs of the S8. Quite a high spec car this is. I'm so excited to be behind the wheel of this car, if I'm honest with you. It makes a huge change coming out of my M4 and into something like this, which has got pretty much every luxury option that I could wish for, and the performance on tap as well. This car has been highly tuned. If you have seen some of my previous videos, then you'll know what that's about, but I will give you another vid in like a few days time which will talk about all the modifications on this car and how much it has cost to do all those mods. So running costs, now this car headline figures, even in stock form, you know, you're looking at like a 4-litre twin turbo V8 engine with about 525 horsepower and around 650 newton meters of torque, something like that. This car is running like a stage 3 map on it. It's horsepower wise, it's about 720 horsepower and 1100 newton meters of torque. That's a massive figure, that. So the running costs of this particular car, I'm not going to be talking about insurance or anything, because insurance is like, there's just so many variables that go in. Postcode lottery, you know, your driving history, your age and all of that. I'm not going to talk about insurance, but what I am going to be talking about is the biggest bill, which is fuel economy, and also the road tax on this, and then also the maintenance and preventative maintenance and stuff like that that you should be doing. That soundtrack, wow, that soundtrack is just something. You can just forget about the running costs as soon as you hear that soundtrack. Right, okay, so let's talk about the road tax. Now in the UK, if you're watching this abroad, you might have a, you know, very similar road fund license, but in the UK, to use our cars on the road, we have to pay like an annual fee or a tax, and on this particular car it's £475. Now this is a 2016 model year car, so it's wholly based on emissions rather than the new 2017 rule that came in. So it's all about the emissions on this car. So it's £475 pretty much every year, you know, and that will go up like by inflation by, you know, a few quid year on year. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Now if I compare that to my M4, for example, which is my car, that's costing you £465 a year, and that's based on the newer rules. And once that car is over 5 years old, which is in another 2 years time, that road tax will drop to 145. So it's bizarre how the road tax works in the UK, especially with all these new rules coming out. But expect to pay about, you know, £475 to £500 a year on this. fuel bills. Now, running this car is not going to be cheap, but, you know, even in stock form, 4-litre twin turbo V8. I was talking to the owner of this car, my uncle, and he was saying that to fill up this car, it's an 85-litre tank, so it's going to cost you about £100 to fill up. And locally, if you're driving this stop-start traffic, you know, you're going to get in the region of about 250 miles, 300 tops if you're really lucky. The range right now is giving me on the full tank of about 320 miles. I reckon this will give me about 250 miles in realistic form. In terms of MPG, this car averages around about 14 to 15 MPG locally, like complete urban. If you're taking it on the motorway and you're going to stretch its legs, then, you know, you might see about 25 to 30 MPG, you know, if you're sticking within the limit. So, you know, I suppose it's not too bad, but again, if I compare that to my M4 locally would give me about 18 to 20 MPG, and if I'm stretching its leg, you know, on the motorway, then I'm probably going to get anything between about 30 and 35. So, you know, you're getting more horsepower out of this car, you're getting, you know, a bigger engine, you know, twin turbos and a V8 as well, so 2 more cylinders. Just natural that it's going to consume a little bit more fuel. Know what it is, but every time I'm driving this car, you know, it really just gives me huge smiles, only because of that V8 sound. A V8 is a car that I really do aspire to, like, owning at one point. Haven't really made up my mind as to what V8 it's gonna be, but V8 is definitely on the cards at some point. You know, whether I'm coming out of my M4 or whether I'm just holding onto the M4 or whatnot, a V8's got to be the car that I end up in at some point. Right, so let's talk about maintenance then. This car is not going to be cheap to maintain. You know, even regular services, regardless of the car being tuned or not. You know, you're driving a high performance car. Audi will, like many manufacturers will say, these cars are built for like long-term servicing, 15-20,000 mile service intervals. You're driving a high performance car, I wouldn't really want to be waiting, you know, 15-20,000 miles to get an oil change done, like, say, within, you know, anything between 6 to 10,000 miles, I'd say. Even 10,000 miles is probably pushing it. So V8 engine is probably going to consume something like about 10 litres of oil or thereabouts. Get that done, it'll probably set you back, you know, maybe 400 or 500 quid. If you're not using an Audi approved, you know, dealership, you know, if you're using, like, say, a specialist, it might be around that price. Audi themselves, well, I'm sure they'll be charging you pretty much close to £1,000 for a minor service. If you do going in for major servicing, it'll probably be a lot more. I mean, just to give you an idea, like I just said, it's going to be consuming something in the region of about, you know, 9 to 10 litres of oil, being a V8 engine. You're going to have 2 air filters, you're going to have 8 spark plugs, there'll be like loads of inspections that'll be going around the car. All of that will add into time and like money and whatnot, so, you know, very easily you'll be looking at well over £1,000, you know, for a major service. My M4 from a main dealer was going to be costing me like about £1,200 for a major service, which was pretty much everything that I've just explained right there. So it's probably worth looking at getting like an Audi specialist, and I'm sure there's many out there, like you guys are probably already aware, that could carry out the servicing on your S8 for a fraction of the price that the main dealer would charge. But I certainly wouldn't want to be skimping on servicing costs or bills, especially on the car like this, so that's just something to bear in mind as well. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little play with this car while we're talking about servicing and stuff like that. So I'm going to stick the car now into its dynamic mode and stick the gearbox into sports mode. There we go. Oh man, I haven't been driving this car for Those pops and bangs on the downshifts. I've not been in this car for maybe, I don't know, 2 months, and straight away I'm in love with it. My uncle's got my M4 today. Whether he's driving that or not, I don't know, but I'm gonna be having quite a bit of fun in this car. Oh man, this car is brutal. That sound. There's a lot of mods going on in this car. I am going to cover every single mod in another vid for you guys. That will be coming out on the channel soon, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm going to get carried away. I'm going to put the car back into its auto mode, so it just does everything. Stick the car back into its normal drive mode as well. So another cost to bear in mind is the cost of the tyres. Now this car is riding on 21-inch alloy wheels, and I will drop the tyre size down here somewhere because I can't remember everything in my head what the tyre sizes are. I would suspect that these tyres would cost you in the region of probably around £1,200 to £1,300, probably a little bit more. Now I can only compare, you know, the cost of this car compared to my M4. Now apologise that I'm doing that, but the M4 is my car and I know how much that cost me to run. So if I'm looking at jumping into something like this from an M4, which I think most people probably would end up doing, like say coming from a sports car into a super saloon, the cost in comparison would be slightly higher compared to like a car like that. The full set on four tyres on those would be something in the region of about £1,000. Those tyres I'm running are slightly smaller than this in diameter. They're 19-inch alloy wheels compared to 21s on this, so there's gonna be a slight uplift in tyre replacement costs. So again, that's something to bear in mind. Tyre wear, for example, this car is quattro. It does feel rear wheel biased quite a bit, if I'm honest. So you know, maybe the rears are gonna wear out just that little bit more compared to the front, but I would suspect that when you are changing the tyres, you would probably end up changing all four at the same time. That V8 sound, I just can't get enough of. Now I know that this car has been tuned quite a bit, and on the standard S8 you won't be getting this much sound coming out of it, but this, for me, it pretty much ticks every single box. You know, I'm just so tempted to go back to my uncle and say, look, you know what, keep the M4, let me have this. Don't know how he'll take to that, but I don't know, man. It has got every single option that I would want in this car. And again, if you want to see a full in-depth review of the spec of this car, I will link that vid in somewhere on the screen now up here. So guys, I do hope that you found this video informative. If you are thinking of buying an Audi S8 and you're worried about, say, the cost of ownership, hopefully I've given you some kind of an insight into that. Definitely stay tuned because there'll be a little bit more content coming out on this particular car in terms of the drive and going through the extensive mod list on this car. So those vids will be dropping, you know, over the next course of the next few days, so stay tuned for that. If you have found it useful and informative, then give this video a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, not only on the S8 but other cars coming up in the pipeline as well. And hopefully guys, I'll see you on the next one. I'm just going to give you a downshift and some throttle. Thunderous, absolutely thunderous. See you on the next one. Take care.